The easiest way to put it is content marketing is the idea that we need to think of ourselves like publishers today. We have to take our sales and marketing hats off, and we need to figure out, like a media company would, with what are our readers' pain points, what are the questions they have, what's keeping them up at night, and we need to answer those questions. We need to be the trusted expert in our industry, and if our customers, our prospects, start to rely on us and our content as the expert resource, they will ultimately buy from us. I can throw out any stat you want to, where it says generally they're 60% more likely to buy from you if they start engaging in your content. It's pretty good stuff. And I think the idea that we can't all be publishers today is a reality because there are no barriers to entry. You don't have to go through a medium to reach your customers. You can talk directly, but they need to let you in. How do they let you in? You need to create interesting stuff that also has something to do with your business so that you can get in the front door. You don't market your products and services as part of your content. That's the big problem that most people have, because if you start creating a content marketing strategy and then you get your product managers or your CEO and they'll say, we're not talking enough about our product. But once you do that, the less it travels. So the more you talk about your own products and services, the less that people will share that. The less you do, the more it will be shared. The more people will want to go to that information to see it as credible information. And that's the biggest challenge, because we want to talk about ourselves. But we have to realize that our customers don't care about us, they don't care about our products, they don't care about their services. They care about their own pain points, their own challenges. So we as a company, as a brand, need to just focus on that. Once we do that, yes, have all the calls to action where they need to be. At the end, on the side, it's on your site. There's your brand. They know who it is. Don't hide that fact. This is not something that we want transparency here. It's not something, oh, do we tell them it's us? Yes, you absolutely do, because you want to be the trusted expert. So you just have to keep that separate. And then once you do from a content strategy, then you can figure out how you integrate that into your traditional marketing program, your advertising that you have, your pay-per-click, your whatever else that you're doing. But you got to make sure that content program stays pure, because if it doesn't, it's frankly not going to work. I think the first thing is, and Marcus Sheridan said this with the opening keynote, is you have to listen. As most brands we listen because we have the technology to listen and we see the keywords and all that stuff, but are we really listening to create content to make an impact? Most companies actually aren't doing that. So I would say the first thing is, are we listening? Are we paying attention to what they're typing into Google? Are we actually going to our customers and asking them their pain points? We have all this information already. So let's get all that together and then figure out how we can be the ultimate resource in our niche, because that's what we want to be. We want to be the leading informational provider in our niche, more than any media company that's covering that too. I mean, that should be your goal, and it's possible today to do that. So I would say listen. I would say two, you probably have to figure out, how do you get more of the company involved in marketing for you and not just the marketing people? This is very tough, by the way, because what we have, if you believe in your products and services, then you have a knowledge base that has so much expertise. How do we get that expertise out there, and how do we figure out to use these employees as marketing assets, which is what they are. They're probably the most important marketing assets we have, and most companies don't use them. And I think the third thing is, look around, and you probably have multitude of content assets already laying around, and you just haven't put it into story form. So I say figure out how you can take all those content assets you have, all the brochures that nobody reads, and all the annual reports, and the blog that you put up that's all about your stuff. So you have that raw content, and then take that and transform that into stories. Because people want to engage in stories, whether that's textual or video or audio, whatever the case is. Tell a story. You'll get them engaged. Don't just tell them data. Make the data into a story. Don't just tell them features and benefits. That's no good. They're not going to listen to that. That's a different portion of the funnel. We're talking about how do we really get them involved, and then also how do we create passionate subscribers. That's content that's not necessarily about us. Most brands that we talk to already have so much content they don't know what to do with, but when I talk to them, they say, we don't have any content. Like, what are you talking about? You don't have any content. We start laying it out there and looking on their website. They have tons of information. It's just not in story form. So maybe the best thing to do from that standpoint is either to hire or outsource or find the people that are really, really good editors and cultivators of content so they can figure out what assets that you can actually have to put into story form, and then you can figure out where those content gaps are. Oh, we don't have this content, we don't have this, and then you can go get it, instead of a lot of companies won't do the audit to start with. They'll just say, oh, we need to do all this stuff when they had half of it to start with. So in my opinion, there's no one right way to do it. There's probably 50 channels to choose from your traditional print magazine, print newsletter, blogs and social media, e-newsletters, webinars, webcasts, e-books, podcasts. I mean, there's so much to choose from, right? I would figure out, first of all, where your customer's at, what makes the most sense. The easiest way to think about it is if you're targeting blind people, you don't have a YouTube channel strategy, right? It doesn't make sense, but in a lot of cases, we're like, oh, we need to do a blog. Well, my question would be, why? Why do you need to do a blog? Does that make sense? Are your customers here, here, and here? Actually, the answer is probably yes on a blog, because it's a cost-effective marketing tool, but it's not the end-all, be-all of tools. It might be, if you're targeting people on the shop floor, maybe it is in print. Maybe that does make sense. But I think figure out, if you're going to start, don't go more than 3 major channels. Figure out how can you really learn the nuances of those channels so that you can really become the expert in 1 or 2 of those channels. It might be a slide share for if you're B2B. It might be a blog. It might be you have the best ebooks on the planet. It might be white paper. It might be, wow, you've got weekly podcasts that are better than none in your industry. So it is okay to experiment, but I think starting out with 3 is probably the best way to go. So it's kind of a case of 2 worlds. One is they're almost across the board, marketers are spending more money. Budgets are going from average of 26% to 31%. They are doing more of almost every tactic except print. They're doing more social media, more blogs, more e-newsletters, even more in-person events. We're doing all those things. The challenge is that only, I think the number is 34 or 36% of those people think that they are succeeding in their content marketing efforts, which tells me we're doing a lot of content. We don't know where it's going. We don't know who's interacting with it. We don't know if it's working. That's a problem. So throwing content at the issue is not going to help. We need to be smarter with it. If you're a publisher, you're not just going to say, oh, we just got to get all the content in the world out there and answer every question. No, you don't. You don't have to do that. You have to figure out, well, what makes sense? What is our objective? What are we trying to accomplish? What are the pain points of our customers? Where are they at online? Then you look at the channel strategy. You do the content gap analysis. So I think that's the challenge, is we have all these tools available. We've got to figure out how do we use them smarter and be smarter and look at it more like a business and less like a hobby, which is I think a lot of people are doing right now. Well, first of all, because we can. Because in the past, were forced to use paid media. Because if I want to reach my customers, I had to buy an ad. You don't have to do that anymore. I can go direct. If I create the best piece of content, why do I have to go through anybody else to do it? And by the way, that's nothing against traditional advertising, because I think there's still an important role, especially on the brand awareness side, for traditional advertising. But how do I really answer the questions of my customers all the way through the funnel? You can't do that with ads. You have to do it with content. There's no other way to do it unless you have a sales force of 1 million people. And oh, by the way, most people don't like to talk to salespeople anymore. They want to find out for themselves. So are you going to arm them with that information? And if you don't arm them with that information, they're going to get it from your competitor. You can guarantee it. So you better be doing it. So I think the fact that there are no barriers to entry to doing content marketing anymore, from a technology standpoint, there's journalists and storytellers and editors willing to help you out there. That wasn't necessarily the case years ago because they all wanted to work on the media side. Now, the largest provider of jobs in the journalism industry are non-media companies. They are brands like Cisco and Microsoft and John Deere and Apple and Google and those types of companies. So that's an amazing feat in of itself. So I think that we have just seen the tip of the iceberg. This is like, I would say this in baseball terms, and you can use whatever sport you want to, but if this was a baseball game, we're just getting out of the dugout for the first inning, even though content marketing has been around for over 100 years. This is a very old industry that's having a rebirth as something new, because we've been doing custom publishing and telling stories since the dawn of time. But now, because this is the first time that there has been no barriers to entry, so you and I can have a relationship with each other. And how do you want that relationship? Because you want to engage in some piece of audio, video, textual content because you got problems, you got challenges, you want to solve them. So we're just at the start of this thing. I don't know where that 31% number is going to go, but it's definitely going to go up. And now we're really seeing brands get smarter about it. I think this is the whole next 12 months is going to be a smart usage of content, and they're not just going to experiment with it. They're really serious now. They're hiring chief content officers, they're hiring content marketing directors, they're outsourcing to all kinds of media companies and agencies to help them build a content factory that works and ultimately will become how they market now and into the future. I think everyone would define it differently. I think that as long as it's solving your marketing objectives, it's working. It could be very small. It could be one person if you're a small company. It could be like in IBM's case, it could be 10,000 employees blogging, which is a whole different kind of factory. I think the one thing is you've got to make sure you have ownership. That's why we call it the chief content officer role. You have to have somebody that owns this because you have so many silos in the organization and everyone believes they own content. Social, PR, email, even IT, HR, they all think that they own content in some way. And in some cases, they're right. So how do you coordinate that and bring it together so you have a consistent customer experience? You have to have somebody that understands how to tell stories. It could be a journalist, it could be a marketer that's a really good storyteller, to coordinate that effort and bring it all together, which most companies don't have right now. But probably the highest growth of titles right now in the marketing industry is a content title of some kind. If they say it doesn't work, I would just ask them, how do you shop for products? And ask them what their own behavior is. Oh, let's say we go to Google, we go to search, we ask our friends online. It's like, well, how are you going to arm all those people with the content so that you can affect those purchase decisions? If you don't have the content to affect that, none of that's going to happen. Who's going to get that business? It's going to be your competitor. So I just say, look in the mirror. That's the easiest way to do it. And we're seeing examples all over the place. And if you look at, probably a really good example to look at globally is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is looking at changing their entire strategy from saying, we're spending so much in paid, and by the year 2020, we have to become a storytelling factory. How do we do that? They don't know how to get there yet, but they know they have to be there. I think if you're not committed to it, if you're just going to do it on the side, I'm all for like a beta test, a practice run. If you know what the goals are and you're going to say, we're going to try this, and if it works, we're going to build that out. I think that's great. But if you're just doing it because, oh, we have to be on Facebook because we need a Facebook page, or what, those are bad ways to go about it. Just don't even try it. Come back when you're successful, try it on a test basis, and go from there. But you don't have to be in any of those channels. Ask yourself why. I think every channel you do and you create content for, ask yourself why. If you don't have a good business reason for doing it, don't do it at all. I think that there is no secrets. It's just smart marketing. It's acting like a human being. We've been, 70 years ago, we were all doing this kind of stuff. It was all very word of mouth type of marketing. Where we were creating great content, but then paid media got in the way. Not for a bad reason, we needed it at that time, but that's how we started to market. Just think and act like a human being and start telling the stories that you know you have in the organization, unearth them, and start talking to your customers like you've always wanted to but been scared to do.